HD3 Millville, South Jersey's talk station.
Who's on the impeachment train? I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. House Democrats are talking about it, with some saying let's do it, but most saying let's hold off. In Washington, here's Fox's Rachel Sutherland.
Chris, talk of impeachment has Democrats divided on a Democratic caucus conference call. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi urged members to hold off on impeachment for now, even as she denounced what she called highly unethical and unscrupulous behavior on the part of President Trump. Democratic White House hopeful Senator Kamala Harris joining calls for impeachment during a CNN town hall.
Evidence that tells us that this president and his administration engaged in obstruction of justice.
Some Democrats have raised the possibility of censuring the president, which has no legal consequences. Chris?
Well, Rachel, the president has a trip just announced for this summer. He'll be in London, where Fox's Simon Owen will be getting ready. Hi, Simon.
Chris, Buckingham Palace saying President Trump has accepted an invitation from the Queen to pay a 3-day state visit to the UK beginning June 3rd. Only 2 American presidents have been afforded that honour previously, President Obama and President George W. Bush. The invitation was extended more than 2 years ago, but there were rumours of concerns about the perception the president might receive from the British public. Chris?
Simon Owen in London, thanks. The Supreme Court today hears arguments about whether the question, is this person a citizen of the United States, can be included on the 2020 census form. 3 federal courts have blocked the addition by the Commerce Department on procedural grounds. How the question was added, it was on the census form up through 1950. That's singing at a funeral for one of the now 321 people at least killed in bombings at churches and hotels in Sri Lanka on Sunday. The country's defense minister says that was in retaliation for attacks on mosques in New Zealand last month. This is Fox News.
Spring has sprung, and there's never been a better time to give your bedroom the makeover it so badly needs. Make your bed more comfortable and save some money in the process during the Boll & Branch Think Spring Sale. Hi, I'm Scott Tannen, founder of Boll & Branch, makers of the world-famous ultra-soft sheets that are loved by 3 U.S. presidents and millions of Americans. You know our prices are always great, but right now, everything at BollandBranch.com is 20% off. I'll say it again, 20% off. That means our award-winning sheets start at just $160, and shipping is free. These are $1,000 sheets for less than a couple $100. And you can save on our towels, blankets, pillows, even our award-winning mattress. Don't miss this sale. We don't have them often. And remember, Mother's Day is just around the corner. The Think Spring Sale is ending soon, so get 20% off everything before it ends at BollandBranch.com. That's BOLL and branch.com. BollandBranch.com.
A beautiful day shaping up for South Jersey with sunshine and warmth. Some clouds will build this afternoon. Look for a high temperature of 75 degrees. It'll be cooler right along the coast, especially on barrier islands. Probably stuck in the 60s, but still pretty pleasant. Watch out, though, for a line of showers and thunderstorms that'll roll through tonight. Low of 57. And then tomorrow, it's back to sunshine. Breezy and slightly cooler tomorrow. High of 71. 67 on Thursday with increasing clouds. A generally pleasant day. More rain moves in Thursday night. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow on Wpgg Talk Radio 104.1.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
It is 4 minutes past the hour. Thanks for waking up early in the morning. Chuck Malamut is here. We're in our 27th, I guess 28th year together. It's more than 27 years. Chuck is our official financial advisor here for the Hurley in the Morning program. The managing director leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office for all of your financial planning needs. Call 609-383-2010. This program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast and are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck Malamut.
Good morning.
Top of the morning.
What a great morning so far.
It's busy.
I would look. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna weigh in.
Please. It's your time. You can't believe what things are coming to, can you?
Exactly. I mean, how this song was initially published, recorded in the 1930s.
Now, yes, there were two songs.
Okay, but
and we're talking basically satire of the time.
Right. Well, that's. I mean, I think a lot of your listeners, and you, Kirk, hit it. You hit the ball out of the park, so to speak. That was a long time ago, and the world has changed. And the fact, I mean, look, I think a lot of people have checkered pasts, and if someone is out or a movement is out to get you,
they're going to get you.
They're going to get you.
The key is, though, and I know you didn't mean it like this, but Kate Smith didn't have a checkered past. She did. Very pro-American, patriot, raised, and you can appreciate this as the best financial advisor that I've ever known. She raised by herself. You talk about it, and I'm in the sales business. You're in the sales business. How would you like a performer that sold the equivalent of today's dollars, $9 billion? $9 billion in war bonds to fund the war effort that countless times performed for our troops, donated the proceeds, royalties from God Bless America to the Boys and Girls Club of America 30-some years after she died. After receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, she is now persona non grata.
Yeah, and
that's pretty vicious.
Look, the underlying theme
to fuel an agenda, though, they don't care about ruining people.
The underlying theme is to basically, eliminate the song.
I agree with that.
And that is a really, really sad state of affairs that we are.
And as of right now, it's pretty much working. You have Mayor Triano in Wildwood, and I hope you're listening, Ernie. Ernie and I go way, way back. I give him a lot of credit because he's actually, it's crazy, but he's showing courage by not letting this mob mentality dictate what is acceptable, what's unacceptable, what used to be fine that now is not fine. And this is all the stuff that undermines our republic.
It's crazy.
It's
I mean, it
but
is
very effective, though, I have to say. I hate it, but very effective.
Well, look, we could go on for hours. The support of the media.
Yep.
Pushing in a certain direction.
Very helpful.
The fact that, as you mentioned earlier this morning, that Ed Snyder, is no longer, quote, the owner. It's owned by a big company that is obviously far to the left, and as a result of that, you get what you get. I mean, I just find it remarkable that within 48 hours, the statute is gone.
Amazing. It's tough to make decisions at that pace in this day and age in a large company, but boy, they made that quick.
So anyway, that was just sort of my 2 cents, and I'll move on because like I said, we can spend an hour or so at least on that topic because you've spent already 3 plus.
Yes, easy,
and probably another 3 or more. But let's talk a little about the stock market here, Harry. Last week the results were mixed across the board. The S&P, for the most part, was pretty much unchanged. There was some movement within various sectors, sort of behind the scenes. I don't know if you've been following, the Medicaid for all. And as a result of that, healthcare, stocks sold off sharply. Managed care stocks, particularly, were hit really, really hard. I don't know if your listeners saw this.
Why aren't things more sophisticated to understand that we can't even afford Medicare for some? How in the world is anybody taking that seriously where that would have any impact on markets?
Well,
I find that to be almost stupid.
You know how we always talk about political risk?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to put what is happening now with this Medicare for all into that that world.
But do you think anybody really believes that that's going to be implemented?
I think it's highly unlikely. I think relatively smart people think that is their basic. It's not going to happen.
It's a minimum of $12 trillion.
And you
price tag.
I saw some potential funding mechanisms, and look, the bottom line. Again, last week the CEO of United Healthcare, came out strongly, obviously against the Medicare for all, and the fact that the issue is now in focus, and when you look at that particular sector, healthcare all into itself, Harry. Last week it was down about 4.4%, and if you look across the board, all sectors year to date, it is the only losing sector in the S&P 500. It is slightly to the negative. It's down 0.2%. Put all that into perspective with the S&P, up 16.6% year to date. And now you have this sector, dragging that return down, or those returns down, as a result of this, and it's. I mean, there's some other underlying issues, but the Medicare for all obviously, had a lot to do with what happened with healthcare stocks last week onto itself.
I'm not going to get ahead of our agenda, but your agenda is really quite phenomenal for today. There's a lot of content here, and I don't use that word. Great. I don't mean it positive, but it's the content is dynamic.
Well, if you remember last week, there were we didn't get through everything, so I carried over a few items, and I think chances are we'll probably do that again today. But so why don't we kind of just get into it?
Retail sales.
So retail sales. That was one of the concerns that we had as we got into the fourth quarter, and obviously Christmas, and then leading into Q1 2019. We look at the month of March. It's basically showing that our economy is firming. Remember, a lot of the pundits were saying it's over. Mm-hmm. We're going into recession. Yeah. We're going to have negative growth. As it turns out, the headline number was up 1.6%. The consensus expectations for the month of March were 1%. If you take out, Kirk will like this, you take out automobiles, you take out gasoline. But sales were still up 0.9%, more than twice the estimate. So that's not. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but it's saying that. Remember, we always talked about the three-legged stool, one of which happens to be the consumer, and the consumer sort of has taken a back seat to everything that's going on. But bottom line, the consumer is out there spending. So that's obviously good news with respect to the stock market and obviously the economy, and that sort of dovetails into jobs. I mean, as we've always talked about on numerous occasions, there's more jobs than people, and I think it's clearly evident in the fact that unemployment claims fell to 192,000 for the week of April 13th. And Harry, that's the lowest level that we have seen since September 1969. Wow. 1969. So if my math, so we're talking about 50 years that we haven't seen these kinds of numbers. So it gets terribly frustrating when you hear from friends and folks that and listeners saying, well, geez, I can't get a job. The bottom, I guess my question always been, well, how active are you in this search? And are you just looking, for that dream job where there's a 1 in 1,000 chance of you securing it? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, Harry, is the world is a lot different now than it was less than a decade ago. And it's evidenced in the financial markets. If you think about, the progress that we've made in a relatively short period of time, because people say, well, 10 years is a long period of time, but in what we do and in what you do, 10 years is sort of a blip. You just sort of blink your eyes, and all of a sudden the decade is over.
True, very true. Let's get our first break in. Chuck is off and rolling. Great start, and very encouraged about the next topic that Chuck will be talking about when we come back. We're going to go global on the Malamut program. And a reminder, for all of your financial planning needs, turn to the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut, the managing director of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. We're also brought to you this morning by cosmetic and restorative dentist Dr. Alan Chenman. He practices a full scope of general, cosmetic, and implant dentistry. His expertise ranges, and I'll just name a few because it's very voluminous: porcelain veneers, dental implants, crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays, all the general and cosmetic permanent dental issues. He can take great care of you and yours. He can literally redesign your smile. But as I always ask you to do, don't just believe what I say. Go check this out. Go to his website, smilecenternj.com. Center cut on the website, towards the top, you'll see photo gallery. Click on that hyperlink. You will see before and after cases, unretouched, amazing results, transformational. Dr. Chenman is conveniently located, 1999 New Road, Suite D in Linwood. The first step towards a beautiful, healthy smile is to make your appointment. I did so a couple of days ago, and I will be seeing Dr. Chenman later this week. Dr. Chenman can be reached at 609-601-2199. Tell Dr. Chenman that I, Hurley in the Morning, sent you. Back with Chuck Malamut in just 2 minutes.
WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is doing our part to make America great again by asking college kids to work for absolutely no money whatsoever. WPG and Town Square Media are currently searching for motivated college students to join us for our summer internship program. As an intern at WPG, you'll go behind the scenes and work in our programming, sales, and promotions departments. Ready to have fun this summer? To apply, visit WPGTalkRadio.com.
This is Harry Hurley for All Season Solar, our official and exclusive solar energy provider to the Hurley in the Morning program. They design and they install the most attractive, efficient, state-of-the-art solar photovoltaic systems from the world's leading manufacturers. What I love about dealing with All Season Solar, they're your single point of contact. They do the system design, engineering, your building permits, installation, and the ultimate glorious utility connection day. They take care of everything under the sun so that you can sit back and reap the savings. Call Frank Neal today, 609-317-5491. That's Frank Neal, All Season Solar, 609-317-5491. There's never been a better time to go solar. The benefits are there. New Jersey leads the East Coast and second largest in the entire United States in terms of solar energy panel installation. No deposits, no hidden fees, no out-of-pocket costs. All Season Solar. Tell them Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Non-attorney spokesperson. Ad sponsored by OpenJar Concepts. Attention veterans and active duty military. If you were issued earplugs between 2002 and 2016 and were diagnosed with hearing loss or ringing in the ears, you may be entitled to compensation. The manufacturer of these military earplugs recently paid $9.1 million to resolve claims that their earplugs were defective, potentially exposing service members to damaging sound levels that could have resulted in hearing loss or tinnitus. If you or a loved one were issued earplugs and were diagnosed with tinnitus or hearing loss, don't wait. You fought for this country, and our attorneys want to fight for you. Call 800-856-2940 now for a free legal consultation and to see if you may be eligible to file a claim. Time restrictions may apply, and you pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. So call 800-856-2940 now. Again, 800-856-2940. That's 800-856-2940. Again, 800-856-2940.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
The great one, Mark Levin, weekdays at 6. Thank you, great one. Chuck Malamut, another great one, is here, the official financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program. This, Chuck, I think is one of the most important things in terms of not necessarily as the whole world goes, so goes America, because a lot of times as America goes, so goes the world, and we get mixed up between the tail wagging the dog wagging the tail. But I was very encouraged to see in your program prep notes that global economic growth has firmed.
So we have seen growth not only here domestically but also internationally, Harry, and a lot of improvement coming out of China, believe it or not.
I know.
And that's due to the widespread government stimulus.
Now, they're up multiple double digits.
I'm not sure the exact number, but I remember last year 6% growth was obviously not acceptable. Now, when you look at you look at the progress that.
By the way, how honest are they with their reporting?
You never know, but I think when you look at their stock market, up 34% year to date. Think about
that's the number I was thinking about.
It was the worst performing stock market in 2018. And conversely, it's sort of the contrarian theory, Harry. Remember, what you oftentimes do is you look at industries and sectors and markets that aren't working, and then you make a decision that you move some of your assets, particularly into those markets. But China, obviously, with the U.S., I mean, they're the two major countries that will fuel global economic growth. The data that we're seeing out of Europe is still somewhat mixed, but there are some bright spots, that exist in that particular region. I think if they ever can get Brexit, put to rest, I think that will be positive. If you remember when that vote initially went down, that a lot of companies were saying that we're basically exiting the UK.
Pocket Kreskin predicted that result, incidentally.
I know. Yeah,
I was the contrarian.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But
because everybody else was.
But as it turns out, a lot of the companies haven't left the UK, and this was supposed to be, put to rest.
Why is it so hard? I know it's a tough question because there's all kinds of politics and everything, but. Why is this so hard?
I don't have that answer, Harry.
It doesn't seem like it would be.
It would seem as
the people voted. You're supposed to do what they said.
It should be relatively easy, you would think, but a lot of back checking behind the scenes.
The politics
of
the prime minister. They want to get the prime minister out.
And
There's
so
a lot of things.
I'm not sure. Bottom line, I think the point I was trying to make is that in spite of all of that, and the UK obviously is a big part of Europe.
I actually thought they had a shot of doing it because they won her out bad, Prime Minister May, and she said, "Give me this vote, and I'll leave."
Well, Harry,
never
say never.
I know.
I mean, I think it's. You look at they have a currency. They've always had the pound, so it's to exit. And there was a lot of discussion early on. Well. They're part of the European nations. The euro is one currency, but they've had the pound is traded sort of standalone, for forever seems, and so it makes it an easier exit. But we'll see. I mean, bottom line, China, U.S., 1-2, 2-1, and then ultimately you have a lot of growth. Coming out of Europe.
What's the latest regarding inflation?
So, one of the concerns the Fed had, and will always have, is what's happening with inflation. Inflation remains low, but our expectation is that it could, in a not too distant future, move just a little bit higher. I mean, the consumer price index advanced at a slower than expected annualized pace of 1.9% in March. I mean, everyone's expecting, 2+. As growth in our economic growth continues to stabilize, we think that those inflationary pressures are likely to rise, which should put pressure on your favorite friends at the Fed to take a look at their current dovish stance. I mean, if inflation gets to the point where it seems to be quote unquote excessive, then what happens next? What would the Fed do? The Fed will go from dovish to hawkish, and ultimately rates will begin to move onward and upward and higher. And again, it's a matter of timing, and not that your show is not political, but
I still think it won't happen this year.
I doubt it's going to happen this year.
But it will happen just in time for
2020. Well, you never know. I mean, you just don't.
Past is prologue. We do know.
Let me
look at every example I've given you for all these years. We've been doing this almost 30 years.
But if the Fed
I know.
If the Fed stands as an independent agency.
Where do you see the incredible coincidence that's going to happen again in 2020? I promise you, Chuck, and we'll be here to regale about it. It has, for my entire broadcasting career, from George H.W. Bush to the present, it has been predictable. So to me, that's not a coincidence. This next program topic, Chuck, I think is so important. I'm not going to ignore geopolitical issues. I'm not going to ignore some of the other things that you've talked about in the past and this morning as well. But from what I gather as a layperson, all roads lead to corporate earnings right now.
Oh, they do. I mean, this is a big week for earnings for Q1. I mean, I'm not sure the exact percentage of the S&P that is reporting, but it's a big number. I mean, for instance, Lockheed Martin, Coca-Cola this morning came. A lot of the financials came last week, and Tesla, Twitter, Verizon, Hasbro. I mean, those are just a few.
But are we expecting the earnings to continue to decline?
Well, so here's what happened. If you remember, as we approached the end of the fourth quarter, a lot of the analysts were basically downgrading, reducing earnings for Q1. And as a result of that, what is happening now, a lot of companies are meeting or beating. I found it very interesting yesterday. It was, the equity markets virtually were to standstill. They didn't do much of anything, and I think they were waiting for earnings. But what has happened now is that earnings were, ratcheted down, pretty much across the board. Equity prices continue to rise. So what we're hearing is that there, while the first quarter of 2019 beat a lot of expectations. Now, certainly, I don't think it's much too early on in the earnings season to come to that conclusion. However, what we're hearing is that we're pushing off into the last 3 quarters of the year. We're saying earnings are not going to be where they were in 2018. So it doesn't come as any surprise. But the question is, I mean, imagine, Harry, for a minute, if you get through the first quarter fairly unscathed. There's going to be some damage, in various stocks. It's always going to happen. But imagine that the majority meet or beat, and then you get the second quarter, and you have the same thing. Then that clearly solidifies the fact that the economy, is firm and growing. Now, the question as it pertains to the equity market, you think about this: the Dow Jones, the S&P, the Nasdaq up anywhere from 14 to 20%, and in a matter of 3.5 months.
Yeah.
I don't think any strategist or analyst came to that conclusion or prediction early on as we got in the beginning of 2019.
That would be a very good year right there.
It would be an exceptional year. I think the fact that the S&P 500, right now is pushing 2,900. A lot of strategists are saying, at best you get to 3,000, 3,025. I've seen 3,050. But, in percentage moves, imagine if you moved another 100 points on the S&P and you closed the year out. I don't think anyone would be unhappy, an equity owner at that point in time. If you shorted the market, I think you'd be very, very disappointed. If you liquidated your positions in the fourth quarter, I think you'd be very disappointed as well. But truly, this is a sign of staying in the game versus trying to get in and out of the game, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense. Let's get our break in, and when we come back, we're going to ask Chuck to pull out his inner pocket Kreskin in terms of what can go right for the market. You're listening to Chuck Malamut talk all about your financial matters here with Hurley in the Morning every Tuesday morning. In the 8 o'clock hour, Chuck is the managing director. He leads the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. We'll be back with Chuck Respectfully yours, I am.
Hurley in the morning. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 and WPGTalkRadio.com.
Would you buy a shed that's stapled together? What if it was made with the cheapest shingles you can buy or the lowest quality lumber? Neither would we. At Pine Creek Structures, we sell the best built sheds, garages, and animal shelters on the market. Our products are more expensive to produce, but cost less because we build them. Come see what I mean at 5724 Whitehorse Pike, Egg Harbor City, or call me, Chris Brumell, at 609-965-9333. That's 965-9333. Pine Creek Structures, built better.
Paul D'Amato.
Harry Hurley.
Paul, I know our listeners want to know what's new with the D'Amato Law Firm.
Things are great, Harry. We are so privileged to represent our clients whose lives have been turned upside down because they were involved in a serious accident. We meet on a regular basis. We copy our clients on all our correspondence so they always know what's going on with their case. We try to treat them like family. We have Alexa here, my daughter. I'm so happy that she's here. We have Steve Van Natten and Casey Gifford. We're a great legal team.
They're the D'Amato Law Firm for all of your personal injury legal needs. Turn to the official lead counsel to the Hurley in the Morning program for more than a quarter of a century. The D'Amato Law Firm in Egg Harbor Township, 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. Tell Paul, Alexa, Sandy, the entire team that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Hey, wake up with Harry Hurley and drive home with me, Sean Hannity, 3 to 6. It's all happening here on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
We're back. It's 31 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut continues all about your financial matters. So, Pocket Kreskin 2.0, what can go right for the market?
So, Harry, this basically J.P. Morgan a couple weeks ago came out with their report, and a couple things. One is, U.S. China. We've talked about tariffs. I find it very interesting that all of a sudden that has taken a back seat. It is no longer. When was the last time you saw a headline with respect to what's happening with tariffs?
You don't.
As we mentioned before, Europe. If Europe can get on the right track and show sustained improvement in their economy, that's obviously going to help. You're going to like this next topic. I mean, I know that you and Kirk and you had spoken earlier about Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
And Joe Biden's name is now front and center. And and the fact that if you have a more moderate Democrat candidate like a Joe Biden, who's now moving forward in the polls, that should be helpful for the markets. The fact that Trump basically has ruled out new tariffs on automobiles. Washington maybe at some point in time, and I say some point in time, resolving the debt ceiling and budget debates, and that's a big question mark. The Fed.
By the way, do you think this is hypothetical, and it's been so long, they can't pass budgets anymore. We're the continuing resolution United States of America. But if they ever passed a budget, would markets be impressed by that? Or would
I think they'd probably yawn by it.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
No, and ultimately, corporate earnings, as we talked about before, all the revisions have been downgraded for the most part. So we're saying, look, if you can bottom out earnings and then start to move earnings higher, that would obviously all be positive for the equity markets. But I don't think any of your listeners will be disappointed with the year-to-date results.
And you did a quick look back on year-to-date returns. Is there more you wanted to share about that?
Yes, there is, Harry. So, if we look at where we were through Thursday before Good Friday when the market had closed, the S&P, as I mentioned before, has been up 16.6%. The average return that we've seen, year to year, on a trailing 12 in the equity market is about 10%. We've only had 1 year in the last 15 where we've had a performance greater than a 10% year-to-date return.
Wow.
So you think about this, the progress that we've made in the equity market in a relatively short period of time, I think is nothing short of remarkable. A lot of that is based on what happened in the fourth quarter, and the fact that I can remember sitting in my office just watching the S&P and the Dow moved when Chairman Powell was having his press conference after, I think it was the October Fed meeting.
Let me ask you something, though. You said it's about the fourth quarter of last year, everything that happened. Didn't everything that happened in the fourth quarter make it that what's happening now in the first quarter of this year all the more unlikely?
Well, I think I think oftentimes the equity markets are like a rubber band, and a pendulum where the rubber band you kind of stretch and stretch and stretch.
Fourth quarter it retracted,
Yep.
and now first quarter it's.
Now you look at the pendulum swings in both directions, and ultimately if it swung very, very far to the left, now moving back to the right. But I think if you look at a trailing 12-month return, including Q1 of 2019 and Q4 of 2018, I think you see rates of return in anywhere in that 8 to 10% range, which I think is still very, very good.
Yeah.
For someone that owns equities for sure.
10-year Treasury note. What happened?
So, the 10-year right now is about 2.56%, and you remember that it was approaching, it was over 3 or approaching 3, maybe 6 months ago, and everyone was saying we're going to 3.25, we're going to a half, maybe even 4. Well, that didn't happen, and right now we are at 2.56%. 10 years ago, we were 2.98. And then in believe it or not, in 1999, 20 years ago, we were at 5.23, and 30 years ago, and you often talk about this, getting your first car loan, the 10-year note closed at 9.06%. So you think about, went from 9.06 to 5.23 to 2.98 to 2.56. The president has made it clear that he wants rates to be cut and not to increase. I don't know how much lower the 10-year can go at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Wow. Who puts money into a 10-year instrument for a less than 3% yield?
Well, look, there are a lot of institutions. There are a lot of individual retail clients that want the safety of the instrument. They want to know in 10 years their money, they're going to receive their principal back, and they are satisfied getting a rate of return of 2.5%. Now, the problem with that is we just mentioned inflation tame at 1.9.
Right.
And if inflation does move higher,
you would lose.
Then ultimately your purchasing power becomes diminished.
Yeah.
As a result of it, just the cost of buying goods and services is more expensive than it was when you bought that 10-year Treasury note.
So without inflation, you preserve the principal, and your yield is set and guaranteed. And I get it.
Now, along the way, obviously that instrument's going to move.
Yeah.
It's you buy it. Let's say you buy on a new, you buy it at the auction, and you buy it at par, and along the way it's guaranteed to move. And don't be at all surprised if it moves 5, 8, 10% in either direction.
Wow.
But then ultimately, at the end, if you still are an owner of that security, you will get your principal back.
Yeah, that's good. Good explanation. How are the banks doing?
So we've seen. I know that you watched and shook your head when all the big bank CEOs were called to Washington just several weeks ago, and you probably said, "What a colossal waste of time."
It was actually
somewhat
embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. That was, you took the words right out of my mouth. It was I had to turn it off. I couldn't watch it anymore.
Being treated rudely and just a bad example.
Yeah. So if we look at the banking system, we've gone now 16 months, 1 year, 4 months, Harry, without a bank failure. The last bank failure was the middle of December 2017. That's the longest stretch that we have seen since February 2007, which was a year and a half before the Great Recession. more than obviously 12 years ago. Over the last 10 years, we've seen 480 banks that failed nationwide, including 157 that went bad in the year 2010.
Wow!
So you think about the Great Recession with 2008, 2009. The banks just don't go out immediately. It takes a while to catch up, but ultimately, 157 of the 480, went out in 1 year, and we haven't seen, like I said, anything in, it's been almost a year and a half now.
I mean, it sounds like such a basic comment, but banks showing health, not failing, is really, it's not only a really good thing, it's a bellwether of a healthy economy.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, and the fact that you're seeing here, especially locally, banks. I mean, you've seen a lot of banks, with the consolidation, but now you're seeing new banks coming, to the area, building, new construction, because, excuse me, their bank, the banks obviously look alike. Mm-hmm. Wherever you travel. So I find that, good for what is happening here locally. I know that you spoke yesterday about Atlantic County and where we stand, and hopefully, it's like anything else. You bottom, you hit that bottom, and then you recover from there. And I'm being cautiously optimistic that that's what's happening here in the area.
Chuck, I noticed something. I mean, banks, and I used to be a banker, as you know. They're so creative at creating revenue streams. If you don't use your debit card, you get a dormant charge. There's a lot of ways that fees are coming sideways at you.
Well, I mean, that's why it's very, very important you clearly understand when you open an account or you open a credit card, mm-hmm. What you're up against. And obviously, a lot of the billing that we're seeing, with online, web bill pay, the fact that if you get a paper bill, you've seen coming from, a lot of the companies you buy from, like bottled water, for instance, they have a monthly charge for paper statements.
Correct. I've gone, I know I'm not going to speak for you. You can do that. I've gone paperless everywhere that I can.
I have to a certain extent, but I'm still somewhat of a believer of having it,
I used to do
watching
that.
it, tracking it.
I don't know about you. What I wound up doing, though, and Margie hates it, I would collect those things because I wouldn't throw them out. I would mark them paid and the date, and they would wind up like rabbits. They would be multiplying. So I went all paperless.
I mean, paperless has its pros and its cons. I mean, it's like anything else. If you stay organized and you know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, I think you can go completely paperless.
I've just about done it. Now, are most people paying electronically, or do many people still write checks for?
Well, I think a lot of people still write checks, but I will tell you that a lot of our clients have gone electronic and are using our web bill pay.
Yeah. I love it.
And the web bill pays, whether it's Morgan Stanley or the ABC Bank. I mean, they all are rather proficient.
Let me do a little commercial. I like your platform is excellent. I'm a client. I love the access to activity, to all the data, checks that you might need copies of, and all these different things. It really is a wonderful thing. What's interesting to note about technology is if you get a loan, for example, whether it's your mortgage or you get, who knows, a finance loan or whatever it might be, a line of credit, you usually get a better rate by taking the automatic debit.
You do, for sure. I mean,
but now they're finding ways to charge you to make a payment, even in some cases.
I mean, to physically write a check, you mean, or to use your own web bill pay?
If you do like a electronic debit,
mm-hmm.
there are some companies that charge you to do that.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I'm sure it happens. I'm not aware. I haven't seen that personally, but
I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody has their own.
Because you're helping them. They're not sending you paper. And
everybody has their own way of doing things. I think what's critically important is, one, you do have a system, and two, it's workable, and it's repeatable, because it obviously impacts your credit. I mean, imagine missing payments.
I showed people 1 30-day late. It's remarkable what that will do to your credit.
So that's why we urge our clients and your listeners to stay on top of things, because it's if you take your credit down to the 600 range, it impacts everything you do.
It impacts rate, and it impacts if you can even get the credit facility. Chuck, while we're on this, let me throw out one other thing that I think a lot of people aren't aware of now. They changed the credit scoring to where you don't have to do this, but you can opt in. If you want to make your utility bills, your cell phone bill every month, if you've always paid it on time, that can significantly increase your score.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do it. I didn't do it yet because I'm very happy with my score, and I don't want to do something that would mess with it.
Well, Harry 100. I mean,
I know.
The highest was 850. As you're like,
I'm not 850, but
the problem is you're 846. I mean, you're just not where you need to be. So
nowhere to go.
I think you need to work on that.
It's like somebody that I know very well that's a superstar that gets basically 4.0 GPA. Now, but let me say this again, though. Anybody out there that maybe you need some points to your score, if you've always paid your cell phone bill and your utilities on time, that will boost your score instantly if you ask to have them included on your credit bureau reports.
Interesting.
Is a change in the law. Yeah.
So the next topic is, one of Kirk's and your favorites.
Exports?
And it involves, I mean, it involves exports. So last week when it was reported, we exported 2.4 million barrels of crude oil a day. 2.4 million. 5 years ago, we were at 67,000 barrels of crude per day, or 3% of where we are currently.
That's amazing.
Now,
wow.
The surge in our exports was, started in the latter part of 2015 when Congress lifted the 40-year ban on most overseas oil sales. Now, if you notice, yesterday oil took off with everything that's happening with.
I was going to bring that up
with Iran.
Now, explain to your listeners, Chuck, why the president saying any nation that does business with Iran with oil will get a tariff that caused the price of gasoline to go up.
Well,
it's
because
like
think about it. I mean, it's so now it impacts supply, and with your supply being reduced, then that automatically is going to push the price of the product higher.
And it was already raising.
And that's a result of all of that. I mean, I know that you spoke just recently about the price at the pump versus what was happening, in the price of crude. And for the longest time, we were seeing it not necessarily, tandemly trading.
But disconnect.
But right now, the price at the pump, moved. It's $2.83 here, nationally speaking. We were at $2.27, Harry, at the end of the year. The price of oil was at $63.75 as of Friday, versus $45.15 just back in December. So think about the movement of the price of crude, the movement of the price of oil, the price at the pump. The fact that inflation is still somewhat in check, I find that to be rather remarkable.
Yeah.
Because, obviously oil and gas, are part of the economy. So don't be at all surprised if inflation does move higher. I mean, it's kind of in the cards, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. But you have to hear it and process it to really get to the bottom line on that. This one I don't like. You're one. I'm one. Chuck Malamud has a topic on his show, Baby Boomers, Not a Pretty Picture. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so this is really scary, Harry. I mean, there's 45% of the 76 million baby boomers that are out there have zero retirement savings. Not 5,000, not 10,000, $0 set aside. So that's almost one half of the 76 million baby boomers. Now, as you know, baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. The oldest boomers, turned 65 years old in 2011. Boomers that will be reaching age 65 in 2019, represent the ninth year of 19 years of baby boomers. So think about it, we've, half are quote unquote of retirement age. And of those half, or not, let me rephrase that, of the total, almost 50% have no retirement savings. So you kind of shake your head and say, well, how can you retire?
And the answer is, in many cases, you can't. People are working later and later, which is a shame. The other thing that's just fresh is this new report about Social Security. By 2020s, it will only be able to be funded at 75%. That's a problem. I don't see any politicians want to cut their own political throats and cut people's Social Security by 25%. Nobody's going to stand for that. So then we're going to have an issue, a revenue issue there to be able to fund it. And by something like 2030 something, it's going to be broke as a joke.
Look, we have spoken about this on more than one occasion. Social Security,
which, by the way, that'll be just in time for us, Chuck.
Yes. Social Security is, and Social Security will be available. The problem is, not the problem, but the way it's formatted will change.
Do you think they're going to mess with near retirees or current retirees as these problems present? Because, that will be...
I don't have those answers, but I do think if you're maybe 10 years out or more from your potential retirement date, it might impact those individuals. But
those of us that have been told that
here's your statement of earnings
at 66,
here's what you're going to receive.
Months.
If you wait to age 70, you're going to receive 8% more per year versus taking it at quote full retirement age versus age 62, which has another reduced benefit. The expectation is that the age will increase from 66 years, 7 months, as an example, to 69, perhaps.
So say right now it's 66. I know in some cases it's 67 and 66 and several months and this and that. And they have this policy about your birth date. If it falls on the first, it goes to the prior month and all this. There's all these things, and you can look it up on the Social Security website. Or I don't do it anymore because I went paperless, so I can see my stuff at any time. If they've made a promise that you can retire at a certain age, do you think that's something that the government would mess with?
I don't think the government or any politician is terribly interested in changing any entitlement program,
right,
to their detriment.
Because that's the kind of thing that sends them packing.
That will send them packing. And I think what will happen is, as I mentioned, they'll probably extend the age when you are full retirement age. Now, I think the age 62, that could also change, Harry. You move it to 64 to take a reduced benefit. But
I think they should consider that before going any further on the later end. That's, I think, a compromise where you could save money. Again, I don't know who's racing at 62 to do that because I think the loss is not worth it. But
look, if you can sit here and guarantee that your investments will grow at 8% per year every year for the next 4 or 5 years, and that's kind of saying what you do with Social Security. If you take the reduced benefit at age 62, to get you back to full retirement age, that benefit is growing by 8% a year. So, and then you go, you're 66 years and 7 months. If you go to age 70, it's going to continue to grow by 8% per year. And Harry, when we do our retirement planning with our clients, we dedicate a whole section to Social Security. What is the optimum time to take Social Security, and quote unquote, what is the break-even point where, you made a good or bad decision. And I think when and it's presented in such a manner that I think a lot of your listeners, get very, very confused with Social Security. Their eyes sort of, they sort of like glaze over. But I think that when you look at the analysis that way, I think it clearly identifies the right path to take. Now, if you don't have the income and you're retired, then obviously you need to take Social Security at that point in time.
Chuck, we have a final break to get in, so we have only about a minute. What do you want to conclude with? I like this question about who pays for health care because
all right,
this
so
is big.
All right, we'll use that. We'll stop here and then we'll save the rest for next week.
Okay.
So believe it or not, Harry, out of pocket averages about 15% of the total health care expenditures that someone generates over the course of the year. Now that includes deductibles, that includes co-pays for services, prescription drugs, does not include the cost of health insurance premiums. The remaining 85% of annual health care expenditures is covered by insurance. Now, think about where we started our discussion today with health care health care stocks, being, the worst performers in the S&P 500. And think about that 85% of the costs of healthcare are not being paid for, by you. I mean, you pay your premium. I mean, so maybe the 15 is obviously higher, but I mean, I think we're on a real collision course if this Medicare for all ends up making any progress.
But it can't because it's not sustainable, and we don't have $12 trillion down payment to get it going. So I think that's a complete non-starter. It's a shame. It's a shame that duplicitous politicians put things out that we can't pay for Medicare for some. We'll never be able to pay for Medicare for all. Chuck, thank you. Content was amazing. Jim, who wrote in, how informative this hour was. Thank you, Jim. 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. Turn to Chuck Malamut. See you next week.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
We'll be back with Chuck. I am
Hurley in the morning. WPG Talk Radio 104.1 and WPGTalkRadio.com.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Recovery Centers of America, treatment for drug and alcohol abuse.
When we're in a stressful situation, it can be very easy to start eating mindlessly. Let's face it, we usually don't reach for a salad. It's most likely something sweet, fatty, processed, or salty. And to make matters worse, our level of the hormone cortisol rises when we're stressed, which can also lead to weight gain. Before you reach for that donut or chips, take a few minutes to slow it down. Do some deep breathing. Drink a glass of water or a cup of tea. Unplug your phone, close out your email, and just stop multitasking just for a few moments. The key is to be mindful. Be aware of every bite. If you can reduce stress eating, you'll be much more successful at losing weight, and you'll start to feel better both inside and out.
Brought to you by Recovery Centers of America in Mays Landing. Call 1-800-RECOVERY or visit recoverycentersofamerica.com.
She's such a beautiful little puppy. I mean, we walk around the block and neighbors always say, her hair is so beautiful.
Healthy and shiny and glossy. DINOVITE.com.
Fatty acids, omega-3s, and omega-6s are great for healthy skin and soft, shiny coats.
I would really recommend people starting their puppies on Dinovite before they get into what I would call the misery index. Bad skin, bad ears, bad breath.
Because if they're getting all their vitamins, micronutrients, microbials from the beginning, then you're not going to run into the problems associated with the allergies,
grass, pollen, dust, dirt, fleas, ticks, you name it,
and the itching and shedding down the road.
Our vitamins and enzymes replace the nutrients cooked out of most commercial dog foods.
Dinovite for life.
This is Ed Lukasevic
and Cindy Lukasevic,
inviting you and your pets to Dinovite.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
This is Summers Point's talk station. WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
A reminder for all of your financial planning needs, Chuck Malamut is the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, 609-383-2010. If you call Chuck and you speak to the team, Chuck and Mike Torpy and the rest of the team at the Malamut Group, Nancy and Kristen, Kristen spelled the right way, Kristin, like my Kristen, 609-383-2010. That's the number to reach Chuck and the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. Here's what I have planned for the next hour, and it is always my privilege. We have absolutely nothing planned. Now, I've done my show prep because that's what I do. I prep an hour or more for every hour that we're on air. But what I want to do for this hour is wide open forum. Take your calls on any topic, if it's Kate Smith, if it's whatever, at 609-407-1450. We'll be back. Fourth quarter begins right now.
104.1 FM and 1450 AM WPGG Atlantic City, WENJ 97.3 HD3 Millville, South Jersey's talk station.
It's tax day for House Democrats. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. The chairman of a House committee has asked to see President Trump's tax returns by today. At the White House, Fox's John Decker.
No word yet on whether the IRS will comply with the 5 p.m. deadline to hand over 6 years of President Trump's personal and business tax returns. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal appealed directly to the IRS after Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin declined a similar request earlier.